Welcome to Navigating Hope, your compass to health empowerment. I'm Dr. Jaime Hope, steering you through healthcare, overcoming overwhelm, personal goals, and emergencies. We'll navigate the healthcare maze with actionable insights and real-world advice, unlocking the secrets to a healthier, more vibrant life. Join us to take control of your well-being and make informed decisions for your health and your future. Stay with us as we unravel the mysteries of medicine, wellness, and life's unforeseen challenges, helping you bypass the ER with a dose of knowledge. Stay tuned till the end of the episode with a recap of your actionable insights and a free gift. Let's chart a course to your well-being together. All right, welcome back to another episode of Navigating Hope. I am so excited today to be joined by Raymond Lavine, a national expert on long-term care insurance, a proud Army veteran, and an Amazon bestseller, and co-author with one of my other personal heroes, Chris Voss, about empathy and understanding in business, which can actually be applied to all things in life. Thank you so much for being here with us.
I'm delighted to be on this podcast with you, Jaime. Good morning.
Yes. Well, let's dive in. So, you have a diverse background. You've got your time in the military. You served some time in mortgage banking. That might have seemed tougher at the time. The life insurance, the long-term insurance, a book. What drew you into helping people? What got you excited about this?
Well, I think that I've been involved with, helping people, or maybe it's my natural inclination, to help people. And as I've gone through different stages of my life and career, and whether it's mortgage banking or commercial banking or insurance, it's really all about helping people and really finding out what is it that you want. And what is it that, whether product or service, what is it that I'm offering, presenting that will benefit your life? So I hadn't really thought about it is, when you say, what, but I think the common theme is I like to help people. I love to help people, if not solve a problem, certainly make, whatever it is they're looking for, what will make your life better. So that's sort of been my underlying interest in the different things that I've done in my career, different jobs.
I love that approach because a lot of people look at the insurance industry as someone's just trying to sell me something. But when you find somebody like you who are saying, what are your struggle points and how can I help you? That's where you get the benefit. So any struggles with family members? Have you ever navigated this on a personal level?
Yes, it's sort of like driving or flying. If you do something enough times, things are going to happen. Or you go to a restaurant, one way or another, you're going to have the unknown, the unexpected. And there have been, a lot of things in my life. Sometimes it's like I was involved in, I didn't know it was happening or I didn't know I was doing it. I'll give you an example. When it comes to caregiving, and I'll ask people, have you ever been involved in caregiving? Well, no, I never have. And then you find out that they're taking care of a family member, a parent, their spouse, partner. So people sometimes are involved in things and don't even know it.
Oh, yeah, that can happen. And so we end up in those roles and
I forgot my thought. That's why
I also said, well, you do the next right thing. And, even when it's our own parents, it doesn't always start off as caregiving or you don't think of it, but you're like, oh, I'll run to the grocery store for you. I'll come to a doctor's appointment with you. And slowly you find yourself in a role that often you're not trained for.
That's right. And, I often use that as an example. Sometimes it matters to people, sometimes it doesn't. But, when you're young, there's certain things that you really want to do. And one of them is you want to drive. Because it gives you autonomy. You can get in the car. And that's actually something, if I forget, is that one of the things when it comes to what I do, and, there are a lot of phrase, peace of mind, protecting your estate. But in all this in life, it's about autonomy. People want autonomy. People want to make their own decisions or at least participate in a decision. And of course, in a marriage, that helps a lot is that you can't be autonomous. You got to participate with people that you love and hopefully love you back.
Yeah, and that partnership is really important. And so I know our loved ones, as they get older, they want to continue to drive, they want to maintain independence, but sometimes we get to a situation where they need additional care that can't be always done in the home. So
let's talk about long-term care. So what is long-term care? Who needs it? And then we'll get into the insurance bit, because once people realize this may be very much be a part of their future, then all of a sudden, okay, like, okay, yes, I understand that. Now, how are we going to afford this? So let's start with, what is it?
That can take, I mean, a long time. But let me summarize, sort of what I think is the path is that it really comes down to first autonomy, and that's sort of the unknown or things we don't think about. The second thing, is that I see my job is not to be a salesperson. Because people say, I don't like salespeople. I don't like insurance. I don't want to have to pay a premium. Or I did my research and it costs too much. You have all not the objections, but the reasons. But it comes down to, I have three types of client profile that I look at. The first is people that have been in a caregiving situation, so they know that there's something. It's like, or you have a health concern, so you decide, hey, maybe I don't need to have 6 beers tonight. Maybe I should cut down on my smoking. I'm overweight, which most Americans are. I'm overweight. My lifestyle, maybe I need exercise. So you'll have all those. So, immediate issues. The second is you've been advised by a financial advisor or family, or in my case, my wife's parents needed caregiving and so much. And I had looked into long-term care, and I just didn't like the process of what was happening. But my wife gave an edict, you got to look into this. So I looked into it. I found a person, and we've owned ours for, I don't know, 16, 17 years. And the third type of client profile I look for are the unconscious, which is sometimes we're unconscious of, we don't know what we don't know, or we don't know what we need. And if it isn't immediate, if it isn't something that we need right now, I'll do it later. It's all a lot of our way we do things, it's always later. Call it kick the can, call it delay, call it denial. These are things that, we all do. And even if we're conscious of it, sometimes say, I don't want to deal with this today. Or if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for me, I'm in decision fatigue. So, if it's something complicated, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, but by 3 o'clock, if it's something that I have to think about, we'll do it. Or if I'm agitated by something, not a good time, for me to think about the future. So then we come to, it isn't that you own a plan. It's that you have a plan. And there was something when I just attended a Black Swan in Louisville, and I know hope is not, and this is not, Dr. Hope. This is,
Not a dig on me. You're right. Like, hope is, like, as a plan, it's great to have hope, but it is not a plan. You need an actual plan.
that's right. That's right. And people become, and I say this for myself too, is I get overwhelmed with all the things that I have to do. But there's something, but what I am learning or have learned is, if you're going to be, whether you know about caregiving, or there are things that are going to happen to you in the future. Now, some of it is also, and I go back to the unconscious. If I'm getting off message here, or we're just wandering along, fine to bring me back. But where we live in Gig Harbor, Washington, which is Western Washington, for whatever reason, and because, knowing what I know about caregiving and all the issues about it, is that I'm just around a lot of people that, have mobility issues. And some of them, I know that they're in caregiving. How do I know? Well, I know what to look for. What am I looking for? People that have canes or walkers, people that have, that are accompanied by somebody. Sometimes I just look, and they're sort of swaying. I'm concerned whether they're going to fall over because they have mobility issues. Or sometimes it's just really obvious. I mean, they've had a stroke, or they've had something where you just know that there's a medical issue. Or it's like my mother, where my mother died a couple of years ago. She was 103, and more or less she was in good health and had cognitive, but she was frail. And the reason she needed caregiving is she broke both her arms within 6 weeks. And so she qualified for long-term care, which is the plan she owned, and she got in her 70s. But it's knowing what to look for. And you need to incrementally have a plan, because if not, then you're going into hope, not Dr. Hope, but hope, saying, well, I hope I have things. What is really important is that you understand, at least have an awareness. You don't have to have a love for it. You don't have to. When people come up with, excuses like, well, I'll take care of somebody. Yeah, but it isn't always at the right time.
And it's not
So
as always as easy as people think. When you have a loved one who has complete immobility, like we were talking about, I'm an ER doc. I see people on the worst day of their life. It's a Tuesday morning for me, but it's their worst day, and they don't know what to do next. There wasn't a plan, there wasn't the forethought, because a lot of people are waiting and saying, "Oh, I don't need it right this minute. It's not staring me in the eyeball, so I'm going to kick the can down the road." And what happens when you get to that place down the road?
that's right. Personal story. I was working one day in November, and then I had a massive chest pain. I mean, it was massive. And so my wife happened to be in the bedroom, and I walked in and said, I've got indigestion. I mean, I got this, and so I need to lay down for a while. And I mean, I was white. I was, breathing incorrectly. And I said, just let me rest. And in a way, I was arguing with her, like, I really don't have a problem. So Barbara, being the wonderful person she is, said, sure, just lay there. I'm going to call 911 emergency. Ah, you don't need to do that. And she said, sure, but I'll make the call just for fun. And so Barbara took over. She was the advocate. Agreement, whatever it is you want to say, go ahead and say it. But I'm going to take charge. And so I was within, once I got to the hospital, probably had I not gone in for my stents, I was probably 45 minutes from going to the cemetery. It didn't seem like it was as bad as, what you think of, in television and movies, you pass out, you lose consciousness. I didn't. But the good news is that, my wife and I have that kind of relationship where it doesn't matter, what I say, one person or another is going to advocate. And this is also, leads about caregiving, is that there's one thing, you have younger children, so they have to listen to you. They have no choice. And most of the time, one of the other things that they have the illusion of control. But when you're an adult, whatever an adult may mean, and there are a lot of times there are adults that I wonder about their behavior and their thinking, is that my wife and I think we have an adult relationship where you have to listen to the other person, or you need to understand, and that sometimes I'm not, as you say, I was at my most vulnerable moment, vulnerable and scared too. I was scared.
Yeah. And those are all very normal things. And so when you're in that moment, when you're having the chest pain, you're not thinking, "Hey, I should get my paperwork together. I should get my stuff." It's kind of, at that point, you ask people, "What is your medical history?" "I don't even know," because you're just, it's overwhelming. So like before this happens, what should people have together so that when they do have this emergency, they have some plan and some level of preparation?
Glad you asked, because I was, even though, I'm so in the business, I was like, what's the story about the shoemaker pedo? No, is it I had shoes, but they weren't fitting well. So there are things that I became conscious of. I have my medications. I have a digital form, but digital information. I make sure that my power of attorney and medical and legal power of attorney in place. But there are a lot, the other things too, like I use Evernote, whatever, I use a digital that every time, doesn't matter where I go, the dentist, the dermatologist, my primary physician, whatever it is, I have a digital notebook. So every time I go, I make and vaccinations. I have a notebook for each thing that I do, and I do it that day so I can remember. On March the 21st, I went to see Dr. Such and Such, and these are the things we talked about. And then I also attach any, information so that I can go back, because, those are the things that people, when did you last see your doctor? What vaccinations you have? What medications are you using? And there may be other things I have, that I can't think of at the moment, but it's, if you're on Medicare, have your Medicare card and your prescription card. If you have, company benefits, have a summary of your healthcare card. Have your identification too. You need your identification. So even if you come in, and of course these days, you're going to say, well, hey, you're going to have an ID. You're going to have to prove, you're a citizen. So have a driver's license or bring your passport so that you have identification. Again, you might think that this is overwhelming and, oh God, I can't do that. And I'll just give you Raymond's life experiences. I didn't do it all at once. I didn't do it on Wednesday and say, I'm going to get this all together on Wednesday. Take the week, take 2 weeks, or whatever time, or do one thing each day. at a time that you feel you want to do it. And then eventually you'll have all those things. And then every once in a while, update.
Yeah,
So
like keeping things where you can find them and then updating them on a regular basis, though, I mean, those things matter. So let's dive into this world. And I'll fully admit, I'm not super familiar with this in terms of long-term care insurance. I see people in the ER. So this isn't really my expertise. So what is it and who needs it? What does it do for you?
the first thing I always, when people, because people always say, what do you do? And, people say, well, I'm a doctor, I'm an insurance salesman. That's what I do, but that's not really what I am. What I do is I say to people, provide the money that if you need caregiving services, whether at home or in a care center, that there's money to pay for it. And, it's sort of a side thing that, sometimes I'll say to people in caregiving, if people say, oh, yes, my parents took care of me, or I took care of my parents, or I took care of my friends, people think that, oh, isn't it wonderful? You've really helped. But the question is, there's money involved. If you have to drive somewhere or you have to fly someplace, you think the airline said, oh, we'll give you a free plane flight and you drive. Oh, I'll go to the gas. We'll give you free gas. You're going to see your parents. We'll give you free gas or the insurance. We'll give you a discount. It's not going to happen. I mean, they're going to everything. It's money. It's about money. So what I do is I provide money to people so they can take care of just as in the ER. You are at your most vulnerable. You are in a crisis. And what scares people about being older? It's not about being older. It's about it's you're vulnerable. Am I going to be alone? Can I dress myself? And these are all the things that long-term care plans provide for people. It isn't just the money. It's also the care support. If I need to make home modifications to my home, how do I do that? What kind of home modification? Side story. I mean, it may not seem like, they always talk about, the bathrooms, you got to have the bathrooms where you can do this and that. But there's something months ago, actually, they also had about ramps and lighting. But we've also done, and it's not that expensive, get motion lights. So you don't have to turn on the light, or if you're going down a hallway or something, you're not thinking about where the switch, even though you should, is have motion lights. And they're little strips and they're easy to do. And they're like $29 or $39. We're not talking about, 5,000. It's not the big things. It's just the little things that you can do that can make, functioning, whether you're older or younger. Because even if you're younger, if you get hurt, you have an illness, you have some sort of cognitive impairment, it can happen at any age. And caregiving is about somebody helping somebody with their daily activities. It's not health insurance. It's not about your health. It's about what your health has done to you that you would need caregiving, which always requires somebody else needs to help you with a daily activity. And they have, the thing. Good.
No, well, I think that's the thing because people don't realize that it's not just the doctor visits. Because I know people are listening and they're going to think, well, doesn't my health insurance pay for this? And sure, they'll pay for some of the things, maybe some of your doctor visits, maybe some of your medications, but I don't know that health insurance is help you with your home modifications or compensate your loved one who can't work because they need to be at home full time so you don't wander or leave the stove on or get hurt.
That's right. And that's why, you buy other insurance. You own life insurance because why they call it life insurance and not death insurance? It's life to your family. You're dead, but it's life to your family. That's why they call it life. Look, maybe it's a marketing term, but it really is. You always think of, well, it's really, I'm dead. Yeah, but it's life to your family. That's why you do it. And the same with disability income. You buy companies either offer disability or if you're self-employed, you buy disability insurance to replace your income because of this or an accident. Now, the interesting thing about long-term care plan, it's not health insurance. It's insurance to help you if you need caregiving, and you have to qualify for it by, what has the health issue done to you? But the interesting thing about owning a long-term care plan is once you're on it, if you have a reimbursement plan or you have a cash plan, you use it for your caregiving. But if you need, if you have some extra money, you can use the extra money to pay your bills or do other things. And you can also work. I mean, if you're an advisor or something and you can do it on Zoom, you can still work and your caregiving benefits won't go away. because you still need, activities. Somebody's still helping you. And, an example would be, and this is before your time, Raymond Burr had a television program called Ironsides. And he plays a police captain who is shot. And so he's in a wheelchair. So he's, the mastermind. And then he has all his colleagues doing all the legwork. But the point is, that the purpose of the show is to say, hey, somebody can still be in a wheelchair and still go out and do things. I mean, of course, I'll give you another example. The governor of Texas is a paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair, but he's still the governor. Of course, I mean, the most famous example is Franklin Roosevelt, who was president, had polio and was immobile. But the way that the cartoons, they had him as if he's, running and walking and stuff. They could do it in those days. Just because you have activities of daily living doesn't mean that you still can't have a life. You can have a life. My father had a life, and he died of heart disease, but it took him 2.5 years to die. But in that time, they went on cruises. They did things, but they had the money. You had the support, so you're not just stuck at home. Oh, what am I going to do? And you can still go out and see people. There are a lot of things you can do. It's just you got to have somebody to help you get to all these activities.
And I think that's the key because, I mean, living, right? You want these documents to protect you. As you said, you give people the money to do what they need to do. So you need your documents in order. You need the money to do the things and get the care that you need. And when you're secure in those things, it does make it a lot easier to live, to enjoy, because you're not stressed about getting those needs met.
That's right. People sometimes say, well, I don't care about money. Yes, you do, or you should. It doesn't mean you have to live for money or that you have to be absorbed by money. However, it really makes things easier if you can say, look, I've got the money to pay for it. I mean, probably the biggest example is when you need to bring in your car and you get a call from the car service representative, you're holding, how much is this going to cost? Is it, oh, it's a light bulb, it costs you $15. Or, hey, you need a new transmission, it's going to cost you 5,000. It panic because you're going to say, how am I going to pay for it? And so these are the things that, if you don't have to worry, I mean, you can have warranties, but caregiving is a big ticket item. It is a big ticket item. And what I mean by big ticket is, and health insurance. And I mean, I read about this every day of people go in and then they'll get a bill for 100,000 or 150,000 and it's pay me. And then you got to negotiate whether, you can get it down because sometimes you don't know. But if you don't worry about it before, you'll definitely worry because you will get the call or you will get the statement, whether in a surface mail or by email, and people panic. And so the best thing to do, look, when I say big ticket, and healthcare is a big ticket, caregiving is a big ticket because with inflation, it's going up. So even if you're at home, depending on, where you live and how you live, there are a lot of subtle things too. Even if I give you the money, even if you own a policy and you have the money, there are subtle things. You got to learn how to work with caregivers, or even if you're family, you got to learn how to work with them because it's you're not having a conversation with them. They're helping you. So you got to learn how to hire people, explain to them, what your expectations are. You got to, make sure that the people that are coming in, you want to make sure, they don't steal your stuff and that they're taking care of you. So that's what family isn't. You can say, oh, I own a long-term care plan, therefore, no, if your family, be involved, be advocates, be aware of what people are doing. So this is what, and then people, they'll say, I don't like, it's too much. And so the question I ask is, what do you fear about caregiving? And it usually comes down to I'm alone or I won't have the money. So the money issue really isn't, it's, you fear the unknown. And I can design stuff. I mean, look, if you and your husband go in and you want to buy a car, if they say, well, I have this Bentley and it's 350,000, you went in for a car, but now they're giving you sticker shock of a really fancy, and maybe that's not what you want. So when I get to that point, we find out what are your fears, what are your concerns, what do you want, what do you want to accomplish, and then we can design. A minivan is fine, or a Mini Cooper. It doesn't have to be one thing.
Well, and so I like that it's personalized. You take the time to listen to what people's fears are, what their needs are, and then utilizing your expertise, help connect them with the right thing to accomplish their goals.
That's right. And here's the other thing that it's like retirement planning. It takes time, unless you inherit money or you're going to inherit, enough money. You got to, the income that you have to have a certain portion towards your retirement. And it isn't 3 weeks before you retire. I mean, it takes, 30, 40, 50 years, to build up whatever it is. When you want to thinking about long-term care plan, there are two sides of the story. The first is the individual, where the sooner you own a plan. And look, I understand the younger you are, you have mortgage, you got kids, you got college, you got, life expenses. It's, living is expensive. It costs a lot. And then to say, well, I'm going to, I'll look into a long-term care plan and I'm like, there's a premium involved with it. However, the younger you are, the less it costs and the more you can get. And if you have inflation benefits to it, it gives it time to grow. So it's a long-term thing. It's not immediate. But then again, I'm not looking for immediate caregiving, but I'm doing it for the future. So I've been paying this for 15, 16 years. And of course, as time goes on, it's like when you own your home, you think, how am I going to pay for it? But, you own it long enough, after 20 years, it's not as onerous. But it's not immediate gratification. And that's hard for people to understand or want to think, 20, 25 years. That's a long time. But, when you get to my 20, 25 years can go by very quickly. So it's not immediate gratification, and that delays people. The other part of it is I recommend that companies offer long-term care benefits to their employees. Why? Because anybody that's working, which is everybody, is going to have kids. Childcare is expensive. You think long-term caregiving is expensive? Look at childcare, how much that is.
Oh, I sure know that. And it's kind of like with anything, even with homeowners insurance. We pay the premium every month that we don't need it, and you kind of grouse about it a little bit until your roof collapses, which literally happened at my house. Flooded my son's room, my dining room. I had always said I wanted an indoor pool, but that's definitely not how I wanted it. And then all of a sudden, you're like, I am so glad that I paid into this because there's no way I could write a check right now for all these damages. And I think the same thing applies in terms of this long-term care. You don't need it until you need it. But when you do, it's there. Sometimes it happens sooner than people think. I see patients in their 30s, 40s, 50s. When people are picturing, this is something that's in your 80s or 90s or beyond, you don't know until you know. And that's why it's so helpful to have an expert like you. Raymond, if people want to find you and ask questions and learn, I love on your website that you have educational materials so people can hear the story and learn about these things. What is the best way for people to reach you?
Well, I have my website, www.lavineltcins.com, lavineltcins.com. My phone number is area code 253-275-6091. And you can also find me on social media, LinkedIn. Not, but I can't think of the other, it's not Twitter.
X now. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not on X, but I'm also on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. There are a lot of things I'm not on. I don't know why, but maybe it's because I'm old and, so there's certain things but anyway, you can find me on Facebook.
One of those platforms to maintain, it takes a lot of work. So as long as people can find you, it is A-okay. You don't have to be everywhere.
Yeah, and you can also find me on YouTube, like Raymond Lavine or long-term care benefits. I have videos on YouTube. So you can find me in a state or location nearby.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I mean, gosh, it's such an important topic. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, which I love. It's not easy, but it's also not that difficult. You talk to a trusted advisor and figure out your goals and set a plan and have a list of the paperwork you need. I just kind of want to help demystify some of that for people. It's not as scary as it sounds.
That's right. And it isn't when you're listening to somebody, not just hearing. People say, oh, I'm hearing you. It's I'm listening and that I can paraphrase, I can summarize back, or I can label, like it seems like this is really important to you, or it looks like you want to find a solution, or it seems like this is keeping you awake at night. So if I can offer a product or a service and somebody feels heard and understood, then they're more open to saying, let's have the conversation, because The doctor understands me. They're listening, they're saying, look. And so then when you say, yeah, it sure would be helpful if you lose 30 pounds, or maybe you don't need to drink. I mean, they're buying into it because they know that they're in a serious situation, that they need to make changes. They just don't need to do it all at once. They don't need to do it on a Tuesday.
Yes, no, absolutely. And don't wait until you're in that crisis situation. So we'll put all the ways to find you in our show notes. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was a really helpful conversation, and I hope it moves a lot of people in the right direction to getting what they need.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed this. I've had fun. Is that
Thank you
okay to
so
say
much.
I've had fun?
That's great. Thank you for joining us for this important episode of the Navigating Hope podcast. Today's guest, Raymond Lavine, is a national expert on long-term care insurance. He's a military veteran and a passionate advocate for planning ahead when it comes to caregiving and aging with dignity. Before we dive into those 5 key takeaways, be sure to grab your free resource, Red Flags, Green Flags, Tools for Finding and Evaluating Your Healthcare Providers. And some of the tips also can help you find can be applied in a similar way to financial or insurance or other practitioners that help you on your journey. Click the link in the show notes to download it now. Here are your top 5 takeaways. Number 1, hope is not a plan. Prepare before the crisis hits. Raymond reminds us that while hope is essential, of course I think so, it's not a substitute for having an actual plan. Too often people delay important decisions about caregiving or long-term care until it's too late. Preparing now before the emergency can save stress, money, and even lives. Number 2, long-term care is about preserving autonomy. At its core, long-term care planning isn't about insurance. It's about protecting your ability to live life on your own terms, whether that's remaining at home, making choices about your care team, or avoiding being a burden to loved ones. Raymond believes that preparation is a path to personal freedom. Number 3, caregiving often starts without realizing it. Many people begin being caregivers without knowing it. Just simple things like picking up prescriptions, driving a loved one to appointments, or managing finances. These seemingly small tasks can quickly evolve into full-time responsibilities, which is why it's crucial to recognize the role and prepare for what's ahead. Number 4, documentation and organization are life-saving. From keeping your medications and vaccination records digitally organized to having legal documents like powers of attorney in place, Raymond emphasizes that being prepared means having access to essential information when emergencies strike. Don't wait. Start organizing today, one step at a time. And number 5, tailored long-term care plans offer financial protection and flexibility. Long-term care insurance isn't one size fits all. Raymond works with individuals and families to create customized plans that provide funding for caregiving needs at home or in a facility. Having this financial support in place reduces panic and allows families to focus on care, not cost. When you're ready to evaluate your healthcare team or any team with confidence, download that free Red Flags, Green Flags checklist to help you choose trusted providers who will support your needs and values. Get your copy now in the show notes link. Remember, the best time to plan for caregiving is before you need it. Stay informed, stay empowered, and as always, keep navigating your journey with hope. Thank you for tuning into Navigating Hope with me, Dr. Jaime Hope. It has been an honor to navigate the realms of health and wellness with you today. Remember, in the journey toward a healthier life, knowledge is your compass. If you enjoyed our time together, please share, like, and subscribe to Navigating Hope. Join us next week where we'll continue to empower your health journey, arming you with the wisdom to navigate life's challenges and keep the emergency room in your rearview mirror.